It's time for Fight News Now Extra. My name is John Pollock, and we've got lots of news to discuss with John Ramdine and Robin Black. As another coach appears to be leaving Team Alpha Male, a pair of big welterweight fights have been announced, and Diego Sanchez will fight at his fourth weight class in the UFC. All that and more on today's show. It was announced on UFC Tonight that the planned main event for the UFC's first card in Melbourne, Australia, will see welterweight champion Robbie Lawler defend his title against Carlos Condit, a fight that Bleacher Report initially stated was in the works. The UFC 193 card will take place on November 15th, but a venue has not been announced as the UFC has discussed running a big stadium but could run the smaller Rod Laver Arena as well. Another welterweight fight that was announced on UFC Tonight this week will see Johnny Hendricks meet Tyron Woodley on October 3rd at UFC 192 in Houston, Texas. Hendricks was expected to be fighting Robbie Lawler for the title after defeating Matt Brown earlier this year, but you know how those plans typically go. Woodley has won 4 of his last 5 and was campaigning for this fight with Hendricks and would theoretically set the winner up for a future title opportunity. The UFC has announced that Diego Sanchez will fight Ricardo Lamas on November the 21st in Monterrey, Mexico on the TUF Latin America finale card. The fight will see Sanchez cut down to 145 pounds for the first time in his career, joining Kenny Florian as the only UFC fighters to compete in 4 separate weight classes. Sanchez won the first season of The Ultimate Fighter at 185 pounds and challenged for the lightweight title in December of 2009. And one final note from Ariel Helwani on UFC Tonight is that Martin Kampmann is planning to leave Team Alpha Male at the end of the year. Kampmann came into the camp after striking coach Dwayne Ludwig left the team in 2014. But Kampmann is leaving for personal reasons as his family wanted to move away from Sacramento. Helwani's report stated that the names Kenny Florian and Mark Hominick have been thrown out as potential replacements, and Kampmann will stay on board until a suitable replacement is found. This Saturday, we are up at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, getting you set for the UFC's Fight Night card in Nashville, Tennessee, and then the prelim portion will be airing exclusively here in Canada on Fight Network with 4 fights coming your way, featuring the likes of Dustin Ortiz, Sarah McMahon, and Uriah Hall, all in action from the Bridgestone Arena. John Ramdine and Robin Black are here to chat about a number of fight announcements. Australia is going to be getting Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit in November. And then we've also got Johnny Hendricks and Tyron Woodley. Fights that we have discussed. It's certainly been making the rounds in terms of the rumors. But now we have fights that we can actually discuss as happening. The welterweight title fight, it seems everyone loves the fight and no one knows why Condit's getting the shot, but we're going to overlook that.
Yeah, what I like right now is the 170-pound division really sorting itself out. Matt Brown, Kelvin Gastelum also announced, so really exciting time if you're a fan of the welterweights. And just, again, the matchup between Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit. Just take away the title. Not even focus on the title.
Well, that's kind of hard not to do.
Sure, I understand, but I think we all watch it for the combat. Of course, there's all the lead up, and there's the hype surrounding the fight, and all the whatever lead up there is in the build up, because that's what people they want to see. They want to see the stories. But at the end of the day, the cage door closes, and these guys have to showcase martial arts abilities, and I think that's why
no one is going to disagree.
Yeah.
This will probably be an excellent fight. But can we just throw the rankings away?
Yes.
They mean nothing.
Yes, they mean nothing.
They literally mean nothing because this guy is bypassing 2 guys that are ahead of him. So
they're fighting each other.
They're fighting each other.
Exactly.
So let's just eliminate these rankings.
You talk to Dustin Ortiz. He says, he doesn't understand why he's not ranked right now. He's in my rankings, but
he's not in the top 10. He is in the top 15.
Yes, well, sure. Well, what does top 15 really mean? Like, come on, let's exactly.
Well, John Lineker is still being ranked at 125 pounds.
Well, I think the UFC needs this guy. We talked about it, and sorry to cut you off. They're running out of challengers for Demetrius Johnson.
I'm just saying, the UFC, their justification of Gustafsson getting the fight was, listen, he was ranked ahead of Bader. And then we look at Condit, well, he's ranked below these. So there's an inconsistency there. Sure. So listen, I'm fine with making the fights you want to make that you feel are going to have the most interest to people, but let's not put our head in the sand that these rankings mean anything. And for a lot of people, they never have.
No, and they mean nothing. And this is business, and I think even the UFC hasn't quite figured out how to handle this gray area right now. Dana White at some point will go, look, man, we make the fights people want to see. I don't care what you think.
That is what he would say.
That's what he'll say eventually. Now he's still sort of looking for ways to kind of make sense of these things. Don't listen to none of it. They make fights that will make money, and there's no other reason any fights are made. If you don't like that, send tweets to Dana White. Don't get mad at me.
But it's
I'm just a messenger.
There's also other factors involved. I mean, Johnny Hendricks had his shot at Robbie Lawler, and Tyron Woodley is a teammate of Robbie Lawler. So you look at it, it's like, well, these fights.
Woodley has absolutely no problem.
No, I understand.
His teammate, and I don't think Lawler does either.
When there's money involved, sure, but it depends on what the philosophy is. Because Robbie said it in the past that he doesn't want to really fight anybody at 170 pounds from American Top Team. I know Woodley's traveling around, so maybe that's different.
But I think if we're going to be straight honest and we're going to say there's no explaining these things, we got to say there's no explaining these things. This is the fight they figure will make money. They own a business. They go, hey, in Australia, we looked at the numbers and the G rating and the Q rating and said here Carlos Condit is ahead of Tyron Woodley on those metrics. So that's why they're making the fight. If you're trying to look for explanations these days in a lot of things, and I'm not just talking about fighting, turn on CNN or like that guy with the weird hair is winning.
It also has to be who's available, because there's no, like, look at Demetrius Johnson. You just look at the numbers. Demetrius Johnson isn't making a lot of money. So why are they deciding to have Demetrius Johnson fight opposed to having Cyborg fight? Because I'm sure the metrics would say she's going to bring more eyeballs than Demetrius Johnson.
Well, it is still hard to avoid. What you can't do is just go full on, hey, whatever, man, because you still, if there's someone who's the best in the world, you still got to have them there. The moment that somebody can beat Demetrius Johnson, that'll be in like 2030 or something, one day, then maybe they'll stop pushing him because some other guy who talks better and has a fancier outfit or whatever will be a bigger deal. That guy still has to beat Demetrius Johnson. He still needs to beat him, and nobody can beat him right now.
Final thing, Diego Sanchez,
awesome.
He is going to look for new life at 145 pounds as he takes on Ricardo Lamas in Mexico.
He's in big trouble.
I have seen Diego have some horrendous cuts to get to 155. I will believe it when I see it.
Remember, there's a new landscape.
145.
There's a new landscape. July 1st, things have changed, and I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying something.
Well, this is also...
This is a trend we're seeing in all of mixed martial arts right now.
Also, the fact this will be after October the 1st, meaning this guy gained down to 145. There's not going to be any IV to replenish himself, and this is a dude that will need some replenishing after making... This is a steep cut for this guy.
There's a lot of myths and a lot of, like, false ideas that have been thrown out there. You can cut weight, you can diet down to a lower weight class, and you don't need an IV. This is just the truth.
All right, he's Robin Black, John Ramdeen. Be sure to check the MMA Report on Friday. Both these men will be on the show, and the only show that will have John Ramdeen and Ovince St. Preux on the same program. Check it out Friday at FightNetwork.com.